My alarm failed to go off, so I'm awoken by a knock on the door at 7:26 a.m. by Lamberto. I finished the packing I'd prepared the evening before, but failed to take sunscreen. As we walk to the boat, I realise that I've got the wrong shoes on and borrow his car to fetch the other, newly purchased, strapped sandals. I'll find him upon return and see him at the skipper's meeting. Sjælland Rundt 2019 has 149 participants, of which 33 will withdraw. 1 lost mast, 1 grounding, 1 broken rudder, and the rest for seasickness or other maladies. The skipper's meeting is outside the clubhouse via a loudspeaker. Standard stuff of sponsors, race judges, the old jokes about grounding your boat. Lamberto goes to ensure that we have registered the change of sail number. We agree to meet back at the boat, where I find that he has already done the preparation that I thought would be the right thing to do. Strip the mainsail cover, etc. The skipper's wife, Petra, and his eldest child, Josephine, come to the jetty to wish us well and see us off. Soon thereafter, we recognize that despite the greatest of preparation of all things that could be anticipated, we had forgotten one little thing. The beer! With this single catastrophe rectified, we head out of the marina.
Ciao.
The start line is just off the marina. Lamberto attempts to deploy the water vane of his manual autopilot, which also has a wind vane. This jams the steering, and we do 3 loops. Not a good look. Rectified, we start 13 minutes late. The seas are a 1 metre swell, with the wind from the northwest at about 15 knots. The first part of the first leg is like a V, open at the bottom where we start. On the left is the Danish northern coast, and to the right the prohibited shipping lane which we must avoid. We tack up this V with about 45 degrees between the frequent tacks, becoming less frequent as we reach the top of the V. At each of these tacks, Ingeborg stops. Finally, upon escaping the V, our first long tack is taken to approach Sweden. 2 more long Sweden to Denmark and back tacks take us to where we can tack back to Gilleleje on the northern Danish coast and thus continue to Sjælland, the headland around which we must pass to begin our southerly journey on the west of the island around which we must sail. Through this period, I have my first seasick episode. Ingeborg is leaning such that the gunwales are regularly underwater as we tack to windward in 1.5 metre swells. Somewhere during the early part of this final return to Denmark towards Gilleleje leg, Lamberto asked me to take the helm. He needs a rest. I'm not a skipper or a helmsman. I'm a trimmer. I know about sails, but not so much about steering boats through water. I've never helmed a boat through 2 metre swells. We're many miles from the nearest land, and the closest is behind us. I accept this request with some degree of initial trepidation. The week before, Lamberto and I had demasted this boat, and we'd sailed her for a few hours. Really, that was our preparation. I trusted our skipper, and I trusted Ingeborg. With those trusts, let's do this. Onwards! I get to steer Ingeborg through that swell. It is much easier here than in the V, wherein the distance between the swell crests is closer and the wave sets are more frequent. She is great, a fish sliding over and down the peaks. I learned to be light-handed with the rudder at the crests and the beginning of the descent of each swell, reapplying direction across the bottom of each swell. She is lovely to handle. The trepidation vanishes in a few minutes. Give me this boat. Let's sail. This really was a magical time. I'm sailing directly into the afternoon sun under a clear light blue sky. The sun is glinting white off the dark blue water in front of me. Lamberto is below. There is no land visible to the front, port or starboard, with Sweden behind. Into this beautiful picture I sail, rolling across the swells, with Ingeborg's sleek hull beneath me. Lamberto returns to take us along the northern coast towards Sjælland Rundt, an hours-long no-tack leg. During this, I have 2 more seasick episodes and learn that bile is yellow. But with Lamberto's advice, lie down, fully horizontal, on the leeward side of the cockpit, I learn to deal with it in 5 minutes. During this leg, I take numerous rests. By rest, I mean just lying on the cockpit seat, closing one's eyes and relaxing. One cannot sleep. But I presume I will need my strength later, and that I am conserving. Lamberto takes a break as we approach Sjælland Rundt. I take the helm to follow the lights of 2 boats in the dark in a 1-meter swell. We're trying to find the 2 illuminated buoys, red and green, which allow traversal between the shallows around the point. Eventually I find them, and using the satellite navigation, the nav, for distance understanding, I wake Lamberto when we are close. At this point we've been sailing in 1 meter to 2 meter swells for 14 hours. Lamberto takes us past Sjælland Rundt and around the top of Sjælland, an island between Sjælland Rundt and the next headland, Rosnes. As Lamberto steers us onwards, I rest. By this stage the wind has moved from northwest to westerly. I take over for the Sjælland to Rosnes reach as Lamberto rests. As much as my first tack over the swells in the afternoon sun was beautiful, this one was better. I sailed from the evening through the pre-dawn and into the day with the sun behind me. The sun never sets fully in Denmark around the solstice. This strange set but not set sun is viewable anywhere in Denmark, but is most certainly best viewed when the northern horizon is the sea. There is no land and its airs to separate the horizon from the mid-orange to yellow to white to blue to black colours in the northern sky. I'm taking a southern reach, looking behind me, not for boats, but that beautiful northern skyline as its colours change and finally the sun re-emerges from below the horizon. As we approach Rosnes, the seas are calm as we have the island of Samsu to our west, providing not enough fetch for the swells to build. I wake Lamberto deliberately at least 10 minutes before the rounding of Rosnes so that we can eat. Neither of us have eaten anything in 18 hours. Why? What's the point? If you're going to dump what you've eaten into the sea. Additionally, vomiting bile, though not being fun, is easier than bile and food. It is at this point that we discover that water has gotten into the compartment under the port side cabin seat/bench and has fouled much of the food. Breakfast is biscuits and nectarines. That first nectarine is the best nectarine I have ever eaten. With that out of the way, We round Rosness, and Lamberto sets the spinnaker to begin a long and very pleasant trip to the huge bridge connecting Sjælland's west and Fun's east coasts across the Storebaelt Channel. The Storebaelt Bridge, or Storebaeltbroen in Danish. The spinnaker setup is one I'd not seen before. The usual story at the head and clue, but the tack has a loop of rope inside a flexible, clear plastic tube which is wrapped around the forestay, or furled headsail. A retainer line from the loop/clue junction to the bow is there to stop it lifting up the forestay/furling headsail. The spinnaker is small for the boat and is set with the halyard running a few metres from the mast to the head. We continue on this spinnaker run/reach, still with the boom on the port, since Sweden, towards Storebaeltbroen. The water is calm, the sun is shining, and the crew can finally chat. We've passed the heavy seas into a beautiful, clear-skied summer's day with calm waters beneath us. As we approach Storebaeltbroen, we are becalmed and frustrated. At this point, we are not the last boat, but only a few are behind us. The huge bridge sits in front of us as two cargo ships pass beneath it. Lamberto receives a message from the race committee about not being tempted to do something we were not about to do because someone did, and it didn't end well for them. Whatever. But it's nice to know that the race committee are receiving reports and relaying information they think is important.
Sono già live. Sì, piccolo aggiornamento da Ingeborg. Dopo la sventagliata di ieri siamo rimasti senza un filo di vento proprio davanti al ponte, dove ci stiamo scarrocciando sotto grazie alla corrente perché non ci si muove. Questo è lo spinnaker che è completamente floscio. In lontananza ci sono delle barche di altri concorrenti che stanno più sotto costa, sembra, però non c'hanno le spicce, hanno solo i fiocchi, quindi non è che vanno un granché, però insomma almeno il fiocco sta gonfio. Quindi spero che arrivi un po' di vento anche qui e si riesca a passare sotto sto cazzo di ponte. 1 ora e mezza siamo davanti. Se ero più vicino, onestamente buttavo l'ancora e mi mettevo a pescare. Comunque vediamo. Vabbè, ragazzi, ciao, a dopo.
Finally, the wind returns from the southwest, and under the bridge we go. Lamberto takes us along the coast until north of the Aosu island. A note, Danish is weird but practical. Storebaeltbroen is Storebaelt, plus bro, meaning bridge, plus n, meaning the Storebaelt Bridge. Similarly, u means island, so it seems weird writing Aosu island when island is in its name. Ayers plus u, island. From there, Hugo takes over until halfway down the channel between Aosu and Sjælland. I waked Lamberto early into that leg to ask advice about a cargo ship which has crept up on our starboard side to the stern. There's a potential collision course. No stress, there's about 100 metres between us, and I'm unsure as to what course to take. Cargo ships move fast, at least 15 knots. Lamberto advises like an adult to a child. Go there! Behind. Go behind. Lamberto returns to the cabin. Next, I see a boat to leeward of us, moving at the same speed on a higher tack that will cross paths with us. Silly me thinks about the 2 zones of fouled air, below and behind, and decide to go below it. When thinking about this later, I could hear Gary, my father, in my head saying, "You are in unfamiliar territory, and you have a local showing you how best to traverse it. Follow him, her." This error costs us an extra tack and return. As I'm heading down the channel, I can see that I'll need to tack away from some shallows in a few miles. But just then, I'm close to the middle of the channel, in both length and width, and there are no boats anywhere. I decide to tack then. I tack and take the Genera across, and instantly Lamberto is awake and asking what's going on. "Calm down, Lamberto, I'm tacking. If I need your help, you'll hear Lamberto. Ignore everything else." By this stage, I'm feeling like I know what I can and can't do. Legs in 2 meter swell? Check. Night sailing via nav following lights/boats to unknown and not yet visible markers? Check. Reaching downwind on a 1.5 meter swell from night to day? Check. And I've just learned about watching one's rear and the speed of cargo vessels. This is a trivial tack in full daylight with no boats anywhere in a deep channel. Not a problem. So, Lamberto calmed, gets some more rest, and I just enjoy this beautiful sunny early afternoon on Ingeborg, looking at the islands, water and sky. Lamberto returns and we fit the powered compass-based autopilot. He'd not used this before and learned about it during the race. We tin-arsed quite a bit during this race. You set the compass angle and it steers the boat towards it, a boon for 2 or 1-handed sailors. We have a long leg to Storebaelt, a bridge between Sjælland and Falster. It's just after this bridge that a choice must be taken about our course. Either we take the twisty, narrow channels close to the edge of the southeast of Sjælland, the Narrows, or we take a southeasterly route between Falster and Bogu, a more southerly island, to finally round Møn. We were set on the shorter route via the tricky Narrows and had planned that route with our charts into the nav with waypoints. During this 60 nautical mile leg to Storebaelt, much discussion occurs, and the first of the selfie video reports were made.
Starting live video, eccoci. Allora, piccolo aggiornamento, Hugo pronto, io pronto, e fra poco è notte, no fra poco però alla fine di questo bordo che ne abbiamo ancora per 12 miglia, sarà notte proprio all'inizio del posto dove c'è casino. E adesso Hugo, can you show us the map per vedere dove si va a finire questa notte, e forse ne usciremo domattina, speriamo. Ci sono dei posticini interessanti qui, non so se si vede. Di notte canali abbastanza strettini,
Osso,
abbastanza strettini, anche questi pezzetti qui che
osso,
da qui su fino a lì, perché non so quanti, how many miles? Maybe 40 miles. E il problema è che ai lati dei canali c'è 80 cm d'acqua, quindi ci si pianta. Il vantaggio, io ci ho pescato da ste parti, è che non ci sono sassi, è tutto fango, quindi se si batte da qualche parte questa barca pesca 1,40 m, si scende, si spinge e si va via o si esce a motore. Vediamo che succede, speriamo di sbagliare a nessuna parte. Comunque di notte le boe qui in Danimarca funzionano, sono tutte accese e si vedono bene, quindi siamo confidenti. Però diciamo che abbiamo avuto sfiga di fare tutti e due i pezzi peggiori di notte, E stamattina siamo stati 4 ore fermi, impiantati davanti al ponte, 4 ore per fare 4 miglia, e perché c'era la corrente ci spingeva, perché se no si andava, cioè lo spinnaker stava floscio e toccava all'acqua, perché insomma ci è andata abbastanza male col vento. Adesso ha ripreso un pochino, facciamo 6 nodi, stiamo ricaricando le batterie per stanotte per avere luci di via e l'autopilota che ci darà una mano. Poi ci vuole l'eco sounder anche, che puppa un sacco di corrente, perché vediamo come va. Comunque stiamo reggendo benissimo, con onore l'ultima posizione della flotta, siamo dietro a tutti, però siccome abbiamo anche il rating peggiore di tutti, vediamo poi quando vengono bilanciati i tempi, perché ci sta che qualcuno si recupera, tipo ci sono 2 barche davanti a noi che questi qui se non ci danno almeno 4-5 ore di distacco passano dietro, perché vediamo com'è andata. Però sapevamo che la velocità non è il nostro forte, ci rifaremo con la cartografia stanotte. Ciao a tutti.
Additionally, Lamberto shows me an important piece of skipper knowledge: how to park a boat on the sea. Useful for storms and fetching persons overboard. You can park close to them, etc. It goes like this. You take the boat to windward gently, locking the mainsail dead centre and allowing the headsail to come over but not releasing it. Thus, the headsail goes from the bow downwind but is trapped across the stays on the windward side. Then the rudder is set fully to the leeward side. This fixes the boat in position. The reason why this was done is left as an exercise for the reader or listener. There was no man overboard. Following this useful lesson, which is nothing until I actually do it, but we continue towards Storebaelt. About an hour before the bridge, with darkness descending, Lamberto gets out his phone and decides to check the positions of the fleet. There are a lot of yachts in the first 2 of the 3 stages of the Narrows, and they're pretty much becalmed, with speeds around 2 knots. Now, we'd talked ourselves up to the Narrows challenge. We would be a first-time competitor who took on the Narrows in the dark and all that. But this new piece of information led Lamberto to a different idea. A part of the 20 nautical mile extra cost of the Moon route is the exit channel at the southern end of Moon. It runs south-southeast for several miles, and you then have to resail that north-northeast to get to the all-important lighthouse at the southeastern corner of the island of Moon. But we have the charts, and we draw only 1.4 meters, and there looked to be a way to avoid that exit channel penalty of 10 to 8 nautical miles by sailing over some shallow water, the shallows. Thus, a little under an hour out from Storebaelt, a decision is taken. Not the Narrows challenge, with the threat of getting clustered with the seemingly all but becalmed fleet there. Not the Narrows, but the shallows, just to the south of Moon, would be our course. An experienced Danish sailor may have said that we were choosing between difficult and stupid, but we are not experienced Danish sailors. The warning from the skipper's meeting about not grounding one's boat rang in my ears, but I had confidence in my skipper. Decision made. The nav is reprogrammed with the relevant waypoints for the shallows route, and onwards we go. To get to the point south of Moon at which one chooses the standard exit channel or the risky shallows, we need to sail a 4-leg course between islands. of easterly, then southeasterly, then easterly, and then southeasterly again. With the wind from the southwest, those southeasterly channels may be a problem. As we sail under Storström's Horn, entering the first easterly leg, Lamberto checks the fleet to discover that we are only 5 nautical miles behind some of the larger boats that have been becalmed in this area from earlier in the day. We are catching the fleet. Finally, we come to the Sentinel buoy, which marks the split between the exit channel and the other don't go there channel, which leads to the shallows. We head east to those shallows at night with nav and charts and both crew in high concentration. Carefully following the waypoints earlier plotted from the charts, we reach the entrance to the 1 nautical mile stretch through which we believe we can escape the shallows into the open water. As we move into those shallows, Lamberto orders the Genoa fully furled and then the main dropped. The maximum boat speed shall be 2 knots. But we've got a 1 knot current behind us. We are watching the depth sounder and moving at a little over 2 knots with no sails hoisted. 2.4 meters, 2.3 meters, 2.4 meters, 2.3 meters, 2.0 meters, 2.1 meters, and on, watching. Lamberto declares, if we hit the sand, we'll have much work to do, and we'll have to use the engine to back out, which will disqualify us. Hugo replies, so be it. A stormsail-sized Genoa is unfurled to give us way, and we continue to watch the depth sounder. 2.0 meters, 2.1 meters, 2.0 meters, 2.0 meters, 1.9 meters, 2.5 meters, 2.8 meters, and onwards it goes. The minimum was 1.9, i.e. we had 50 centimeters of water under Ingeborg. But we are through! There was some stress and kerfuffle with the setting of the next sail, as both of us were rather tired. The concentration required for the 4 legs from Storström and the 2 legs to approach the narrows and the depth meter watching through them had drained us. But with just a spinnaker set, we push out into open water. A few miles on, Lamberto declares that he needs a rest, and I take the helm. Unfortunately, it is only 30 to 40 minutes later that I notice that I am about to fall asleep and need to raise Lamberto. What follows is a testament to Lamberto's skill and stamina. As I sleep, exhausted, he takes us to the lighthouse at the southeast of Moon, drops the spinnaker, raises the main, sets the Genoa as the sun rises, and all of that solo. He wakes me. Hugo, get up here! Bleary and sore all over, I head to the cockpit for Lamberto to declare, when will you have the chance to see this next? As I look at the cliffs of Moon. They are analogous to the cliffs of Dover, of white limestone. They are so beautiful. But I am so wrecked, I merely acknowledge their beauty and head back to sleep. Meanwhile, Lamberto pushes on, northward. An hour later I rise to a welcome from Lamberto. "Come and do your job. Trim these sails." Not weary, but still bodily sore, I set to task. This is my thing. We're in a 1 metre swell with a westerly. The general is not quite right, and the mainsail is too flat and too eased closing the slot width. Corrected. Main sheet in, fang eased, general trimmed. They give a little increase in speed and much in balance. But we've got a 12-knot westerly, and we're only doing 5 knots. Lamberto asks, "What about the backstay?" I reply, "Yes, that should help the genoa and give a nicer centre spot on the main." It is applied. We get plus half a knot. We then get into an even better air and are touching 6 knots regularly. Lamberto takes a much-needed rest, and I continue our track north across the first of the 2 wide bays to the south of Copenhagen, with a passing warning from Lamberto: "Watch for the cargo ships." Thus, happy as a clam, though still sore, I take us uneventfully north as Lamberto rebuilds some strength. We are heading straight north in open waters. Again, a beautiful summer's day of clear skies and what seemed to be and was forecast as a reliable westerly.
So, last update for Petra and Hugo's mom. We are around half the way in the bay between Dragør and Stensklint. We arrived in front of Stensklint full speed, 5.5, 6 knots. And then like in 30 seconds there was total flat. We've been like how many hours? 3 hours? 4? 3 hours with zero speed basically. The wind was jumping on top of the cliff and then maybe coming down somewhere else. Anyway, during the course of the day we've seen some boats on shore moving, so pulling on the sail has been a matter of going this 500 meter extra and take a little bit of air, 1 knot of air on the sails, and then slowly in like 1 hour reach the windy area. So now we're up. Yeah, here we again. So we're running 3.5 knots, going toward Dragør, and then we take the channel of Copenhagen, going up until Helsingør. Will be a long night because I can see with the tracking device of the race that basically there is very, very little wind. We have boats in the channel from Copenhagen to Helsingør, 1 knot, 1.8 knots. Basically they have zero wind, and tonight is going to be a pain in the ass. So I hope we can get out of the open water here, because here is where the ships tend to pass to enter Copenhagen. So we want to go Dragør and then stay close to shore, because it's a westerly wind, very likely will drop during the night, and then we are fucked in the middle of the sea. So if we are close to shore, at least I can drop the anchor.
Frustration sets in. The old ifs come out. If we'd had this breeze. Lamberto is a man of action who wants to rule his destiny. But there's nothing you can do on a boat to produce a new wind. I retire, figuring that the wind will come, and meanwhile rest is the best strategy. Similarly, getting away from the man who wants to control his destiny and has no such agency seemed wise. Meanwhile, Lamberto tries X, Y, and Z. Some hour or so later I emerged to find that some of X, Y, or Z, and or time, have helped, and we are now heading under a light breeze sou'wester, away from our northerly goal. But at least we have way. There is much discussion about where the wind will or won't be and appropriate strategy. I perform lots of observations from the bow and elsewhere about boats under sail that we can see, where they are and in which direction they are heading, as Lamberto does the same. We are building a picture of where the wind is and which way it's going. Our sou'westerly direction is designed to get us close to land, for that seems to be where one can find reliable wind. However, as we are approaching that headland that separates these two large bays which we need to cross, we observe a ketch under sail heading sou'west across the middle of the northern bay. An advisory board meeting is convened in which propositions for optimal course strategy are presented. In the end, evidence wins out, and we set a course parallel to, but in the other direction of, that ketch, the headland at the top of the second bay. The spinnaker and autopilot are set. At this point we've been constantly sailing for 2 days, and the wind has been nor'westerly, westerly, no damn wind, sou'westerly, westerly, more no damn wind. We thought we saw some nor'westerly, and it has come back from the west. Onwards we head to this headland at the top of the second bay under spinnaker on a not too uncomfortable sea. It's not a headland, but the southeastern corner of the island of Armagh. My brain was so addled at this point I didn't place it. In mid-afternoon we reached Dragur, the southeastern corner of Armagh, and begin our final passage north, past Armagh and Copenhagen, into Øresund, towards Helsingør and the finish line. Once we are at and past Copenhagen, we are in familiar territory and close to the finish. Spirits rise after the struggle of the second becalming and its demise. From the west of Armagh lies the Copenhagen to Malmö bridge to Sweden. Just above it to the northeast of Armagh is this large, very low island called Saltholm. We need to pass under the bridge between Armagh and Saltholm and be observant in the shipping channel that runs there. We approach under spinnaker in the afternoon on a fine day. Towards the top of Saltholm and the shipping channel, the spinnaker begins running a bit shy. The wind is strong and we're making good speed, but we need to change sails. We're not out of control, but just within it, and that's not a good look when you're playing with cargo ships in narrow channels. We exit the shipping channel at its top to the east and go head to wind to make the sail change. The problem, as we would find, was the current. There was no problem with the sail change, but our journey back westward towards the top of Armagh would take us exactly down the same track that we had just sailed under spinnaker. The current was 3 knots, and there's nothing you can do about that but get out of the channel into shallower waters. In doing so, we incurred this penalty, spending more time going back to exactly the same place from whence we came. But with that crossing achieved and better sails set, we again head north, passing the top of Armagh, on to Nordhavn, and past the line of windmills, and get into Øresund. The wind has moved to northwest, and we, having learned our lesson of open sea at the roundabout, are hugging the coast, heading north past the richer coastal suburbs of Copenhagen. It's Saturday night around 11 p.m. after the last day of the school year. Music can be heard from big speakers a mile or two to shore. Lamberto pushes us northwards and complains about idiots in powerboats. We saw someone in something that was doing at least 40 knots and making one hell of a racket. Whatever. We are on the home straight, and it's time for Lamberto to treat his crewmate with a specially prepared meal. The seas are quiet, though not the speedboats and music. The autopilot is set, we have a long tack, and it's time to have a little culture. Pasta with an early cured sheep cheese. Pecorino, I think, with pork neck. A precursor to carbonara, Lamberto informs me. So there we are, eating a lovely pasta, quietly floating by under autopilot, with sails set as the noises of rich idiots and the young enjoying end-of-school parties invade our ears, confident that we will finish in the early morning, maybe 3 a.m. The Italian man, denied pasta by other duties, has served his lovely meal and taken his fill after a long day. In around 20 hours he's had maybe 2 to 3 hours rest, on top of the same for the previous day. But now it's time for rest for our skipper. So Hugo takes Ingeborg via autopilot up Øresund, close to the shore, with the usual instructions. Watch out for things to run into or shallow water. Yep. Sleep well, skipper. This all goes rather nicely for about an hour, until around Skodsborg I'm close to becalmed. We have a following current of around 1 knot, and Ingeborg is making 1.4 knots. It will take a very long time to hit Helsingør at this rate. Perhaps unwisely, I call on Lamberto to help us solve this next becalming. Under considerable frustration and exhaustion, Lamberto does what skippers do. Within half an hour, we have way again, and having set the autopilot to Esbjerg, a town close to the north of Øresund. Lamberto returns below for the continuation of an already very well earned and much needed rest. But this was after a considerable discussion of laying anchor, an effort to find the best place away from the end of school parties to do it. It was in that effort of getting away from the noise that we found the fresh wind. I find this one of the lovely ironies hidden within this story. Of the entire race, the next leg was my most satisfying. It's dark, but I know how to sail at night. We know that the winds shift around the shore. I have an exhausted skipper. There are shallows to be avoided, but a skipper-chosen destination to reach just south of Esbjerg. The autopilot is set. I just stand, and that is important after so much sitting, with hands folded across the top of the cockpit spray shield, and watch the water, and listen, and watch the nav for boat speed. We pass Velbæk, Rungsted, the broad bay of Nivå, and onwards towards Esbjerg. During this, I take times to look at sail adjustment as winds weaken and strengthen. I find that we have as close to perfect trim as possible. Our speed is not controlled by the sails, but by the wind. I abandon sail trim. The wind direction is roughly constant. It is wind speed that controls us. I learn to predict our speed from the strength of the wind on my face. 3.4 knots, 3.6 knots, 3.8 knots. I repeatedly test myself, feeling the changes of wind on my face and looking down at the nav. In these dark, quiet hours, I think I've learned something that can only be learned in this way. I'm in touch with the boat, with the surface water patterns, with the wind on my face, and with nothing else intruding my thoughts. A meditation on sailing. I am, of course, forward planning what is happening, and I can see that a slight course adjustment to the nor-northeast will mean that we will miss a few shallows, and vastly more importantly, give my skipper more sleep. The autopilot has 2 dials, one for on, reset and other mode of operation settings, and another for direction. It is very poorly labelled and I have no idea which way to turn it. Whatever, choose one and see what happens. With that most trivial of binary trial and error, I managed to set the autopilot to Snekkersten, the town between Espergærde and Helsingør, and give my skipper the maximum possible recuperation before I start to disobey his instructions. During the race, whenever the nav complained of low voltage, we would start the engine to recharge the batteries. I ran through 3 low voltage warnings, ignoring them all, to give my skipper the sleep he needs. There's no problem, I stay out of shallow water. If it all dies, we start the engine and there's plenty of time to fix things. In the back of my mind, I was hoping for some more wind, and then I could disengage the autopilot, take Ingeborg to just under the ferry crossing at Helsingør and park her as trained, and then wake Lamberto and say, "Do you want to take her over the finish line, or should I?" This was thankfully not to be. Instead, we reach my extended mark at Snekkersten. We are 2.5 of 216 nautical miles from the finish, and I have to wake Lamberto. I start the engine. No response. I turn on the light in the cabin. No response. Reluctantly, I say, "Lamberto?" We are again becalmed. I've got to the chosen destination, but it is 3 a.m. and there is no wind. A justifiably grumpy Lamberto comes up, takes a moment to orient himself, and quietly declares something like, "Keep us in the right direction, watch out for shallows, and wake me when there are signs of wind." After a quick and wise SMS to the race committee saying, "We're at Snekkersten and we'll finish before 1500 tomorrow," which is the official end of race time, Lamberto returns to rest. Here is the payback. For the majority of the race, Lamberto has carried the heavier load by far, but the rest he has given me is now able to be repaid. "We will finish," was our agreement pre-race. No problem. I have the sustenance to keep Ingeborg off the rocks and other nasties. But I have no breeze. I spend 3 hours with no breeze optimizing current. We make 0.4 nautical miles as the sun comes up to the northeast over Sweden. I am constantly looking at the mast top wind vane, the sails, just listening, and watching the glassy water for any sign of wind. For 3 hours. I have current floated us from one side of Snekkersten to the other. The castle is in sight. We are 1.5 nautical miles from the finish line. And still I am looking for signs of wind anywhere. There is a problem with wind hunting. On an unstable sea, one cannot trust one's sails as the gentle rolling of the boat causes sail movement. But I am on the flattest water I have ever seen, and when the sails start to move, not just gentle flutters, but something with purpose, I am gotcha! With an eagle eye on the water, before long those lovely, uniformly directed ripples appear. I look around the boat. The ripples are around us with some holes, but the ripples are building and the holes shrinking. It's coming. Time to prepare. Start engine and then illuminate cabin lights was not a very successful Wake Lamberto strategy last time. But I have calm waters, so I can use the gas stove in the cabin. Coffee time! With the sun having risen, ripples on the water, i.e. signs of wind, and coffee prepared, now is the time to raise the skipper. Lamberto? What's happening? 2 pieces of good news. We have signs of wind and I have coffee. Take your time. We're in no rush. Within a few minutes, with coffee downed, my skipper was back in command. Before I'd finished my coffee, a spar was set to wing and wing the boat, and as the line was drawn, I lost most of my coffee. But who cares? We are 1.5 nautical miles from the finish line. We have both crew on deck. The skipper is activated. Have signs of growing wind, and stuff will happen. The min-max of current speed of the last 3 hours was 0.4 to 1.2 knots. Immediately, we have moved from 0.4 to 1.4 knots. I head to the bow to look out at the water and watch where the breeze is building. A few observations are delivered to the skipper. I return to the cockpit. Go back to the bow. Your weight is lifting the stern and reducing drag. Okay. It's 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. One cannot complete the race after 3 p.m. We are 1.5 nautical miles from the line. As I'm sure you are aware, you've been listening. There is only one challenge: crossing the Helsingør to Helsingborg ferry lines. Another SMS to the race committee from the skipper lets them know that we're on our way from Snekkersten. We know that we are the last boat. We know that they know that we are the last boat. Here we come. The wind is from the south as we approach the ferry lane. We need to jibe under wing and wing as we move from a northerly to northeasterly course. We're moving at 2.0 to 2.1 knots and looking at the ferry lane as we calculate how far we can move in the 10-odd minute turnaround of the ferries. Maybe 450 meters? Should be possible. It's all about timing. With that in mind, the crossing was engaged behind the ferry coming into Helsingør. We have 11 minutes, declares Lamberto, and the bow waves of the ferry hit and stop Ingeborg. I'm a little worried at this point, but Lamberto decides to get out his phone and make his second selfie video update. As is often and generally should be the case, the crew are uneasy, but nothing could shake the skipper's confidence. It's fine. And it was. The finish line is finally in sight, and Lamberto starts talking about doing a jibe to loop around and come back to cross the line, a little flourish. Cazzo! Let's not waste their time, just do what we set out to do. And so Ingeborg crosses the line, displaying her competitor number 8, and got her hooter. This was followed by a gunshot, or equivalent, to indicate that the last competing boat was home. we were greeted with hand-waving and difficult-to-hear comments. We dropped the sails and engaged the engine at the entrance to the harbour by members of the club. Lamberto did a perfect entrance to our berth. Pietro was on the jetty. We are home. A photo by Pietro of the crew on board Ingeborg was taken. Lamberto had informed me that Helsingør Sailing Club honoured the last competitor home in some way. Okay, whatever, we have to return the track device and our logbook and competition number laminate within 1 hour. Let's get that done. More we shall finish thinking. It was so reassuring to have the skipper's wife Petra meet us at the jetty. Long two-handed sailing races are a thing unto themselves. This was a welcome back into regular life. Home. At the clubhouse we are welcomed warmly with champagne and a prize for the last boat home. The welcome by the club was excellent. 62 hours, 22 minutes of "we will finish" in the congratulatory embrace of the race committee and club. Lamberto was asked, "Will you race again next year?" He looked to me. "What do you think?" I offered my hand.